You had class all day, I was living the dream.
Finished up in 2 hours and I was eating ice cream.
I woke up when I want, I did what I liked.
I was homeschooled, baby, I was living the life.
I made my own schedule, okayed it with my mom.
Never went on any dates except for homeschool prom.
Finished top of my class, valedictorian.
Watched enough PBS to be considered a historian. I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled.
I was always comfy cause my couch was my desk.
I only had 2 classmates and both were my pets.
My mom was the teacher, administrator, and principal.
I'll take anyone down in checkers, chess, or in Scrabble.
Jesus is my co-pilot's on the back of my van.
The youth group was my spot cause they were my only friends.
Every day at recess, I was climbing my trees.
At homeschool, you don't need to ask permission to pee.
Thought I didn't play sports and you don't know me at all.
Dominated the court Saturday morning church ball.
I love the lion, witch, and wardrobe, but don't ask me why.
I won most likely to succeed by me, myself, and I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled like only ate at Chick-fil-A, but not before we pray.
Amen.
Parents only let me listen to Lecrae. I was homeschooled, always ate at Chick-fil-A. Never ate before I prayed, only listen to Lecrae. Put your hands in the air if you can relax. I was homeschooled. 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 Every day was pajama day.
That was good. Can y'all hear me? Hi, guys. Thanks for coming. We are also recording this so that others can hear it that aren't able to come today. So let's go ahead and pray, and then I'm going to ask some ladies to come join me on stage. God, thank you so much that we can come and just be in your presence with other friends. And I'm just asking that you would speak to us, that we would have wisdom in what you're calling us to do with homeschooling, with discipling our children, with loving others. And we just pray that you would be glorified, God. We thank you that you're our Savior, that you are truth, and we just want to lift your name up on high. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So let's see. Tammy, Sandra, all of y'all that are coming up. Abby and Robin. They're going to join us up here. We're going to be able to answer some questions. So there's a mic behind you, Tammy. And just have to unmute it. And y'all can just pass it around. Okay. I'm not texting. I'm looking at the notes. Oh, and Aaron. Thank you. Okay. Save the best for last. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about my testimony about homeschooling. I was teaching at Barton Junior High, and I got pregnant, and my husband was teaching at Hayes High School, and so I loved having a baby. So then I had another, and we were kind of like, okay, we'll have our kids really close together so that I can get back to teaching because, you know, we were poor on just one salary, and that was just kind of like the plan. And anyways, I kept having kids. I had 4 kids pretty close in 4 years, and obviously, to me, when you have kids, you're homeschooling them because you're teaching them. And I took it very seriously, like all of us do. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have emceed. Anyways, and I think it's more menopause, but anyways. Anyway, so I just think that as we're training our children, then we're teaching them, obviously. And but God started stirring in my heart just wanting to disciple them further, and so sending them to school for me, that's what I think. I didn't have like necessarily an epiphany moment or a special verse that God gave me saying homeschool your kids. It was just like I wanted to disciple them. I wanted more time with them, and it was fun and awesome. And God did provide for me other people. The church I was going to at the time, nobody homeschooled, and so I felt kind of like an odd person. And but God provided for me one time when I was walking in the neighborhood, somebody else that was like I had known from college. And anyway, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, there's other people that go to my church that are Christians. And anyways, he provided other people for me that were homeschooling. And somebody was just starting a park day, so we would go to park day, and I met other friends. And then I was thinking it would be fun if I could do some classes together with other people. And I looked into other co-ops, and there are awesome co-ops, or like maybe private schools or something, but that costs money. And so I was like, maybe if all the parents got together, we could all teach something different, and then nobody would have to pay. We would just all share. So that's kind of what a co-op is, cooperating together. And so I just kind of put it out there to some people, and there were 6 ladies that showed up, and we kind of discussed it, and we just started a co-op, and it was awesome. There's a lot of things to think about when you're starting a co-op, and we're going to kind of talk about that on the panel some, but that was a neat time. And just over the years, I did different things, lots of different curriculums we can talk about. I did do classical conversations for a couple years, and then eventually did One Day Academy and ACC. So all my kids are now graduated. And so that I was telling them, like, I have all these other little jobs right now, but homeschooling was definitely my job. And just, I really loved it and got paid in lots of ways, but not with money. So it's different. But anyway, so we're going to ask some questions to these ladies. We're just kind of going to go through some. I tried to put an order to it. So the first one is, did you feel a calling or a nudging from the Lord to homeschool? Just whoever wants to answer that one. Did anybody feel a special calling or have a testimony about it?
I don't know. Is this on?
Yeah.
Yes. Whenever I remember being in the car before I even had kids, and my husband had started his job, and he said, you know, my coworker, they do something called homeschooling. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, well, you know, and so he kind of described it. It was like the craziest thing I ever heard. And so, but then, you know, he would tell about different things that they were doing. And then by the time we had kids, and then by the time Matthew, my oldest, was in kindergarten, it's like we just knew, it just made sense, you know, because it was almost like what we were going to do. But I didn't, it wasn't like an epiphany moment. It was more like this.
What would y'all say to someone that said, where do I even start with homeschooling?
Somebody else want to say something? No? Okay. Sure. Okay.
I would say pray. Before you begin any kind of homeschooling, pray and get into the Word, because you're going to need to be full of the grace of God and His mercy and His wisdom, because homeschooling is definitely a pouring out. And if you're not filling yourself up with God and His truth and just following Him very intimately, it's going to make you cry every day. Homeschooling will make you cry every day. I mean, friends say that. I'm not that I've lived that.
Okay, what would your typical day look like?
So our typical day is we kind of a different situation where one of my children is in public school. And so we get her out the door and pray over her and take her to school, and then everyone else kind of emerges from their room, and I cook second breakfast. It's like hobbits. And but it's very calm, and that's one of the things that I love about homeschooling. There's no rush. The best thing about homeschooling is being with your kids, but the second best thing is not having to prepare lunches in the morning. That's just my own personal opinion. I hate making lunches for breakfast, but it's just very calm. You know, we have our meal. We all have a responsibility in cleaning up and getting ready, and then they meet me at the school table, and we usually start the subject that they enjoy the most. because it just gets them to come to the table. They're excited. We start with a great attitude. We pray, and we just begin.
Yeah. You want to share, Abby, what y'all's day looks like?
Sure. I think Sandra did a really good job of explaining how to do it and the perspective that you have when you get to it. I have two, and they're both homeschooled. Right now it's a 7 and 11-year-old. And so our day starts with eating and praying and getting our day going. I try to kind of separate what we would do at home if they were in school and what we're doing in school, just so that mentally we have some sort of break. Okay, here's this, and then here's this. We start with independent work, and then each individual kid does math with me because they're on different levels. And then when we have reading aloud stuff, we do that usually at like a morning break or a lunch break. And typically the first grader's done by then, and the 5th grader continues on. That's just our personal schedule. But I will say it always changes. Always. It's never the same. Either somebody's too tired, we've got something going on, we get to have friends over during the week, during the day, which is one of the big pluses. Or like my husband has a very fluid work schedule, so we will take a break and we will do something with Dad when he's home, because that's kind of like vacation. That's one of the reasons why we do homeschool.
Yeah, I have to say that it just can be flexible. I remember thinking, should I try to model public school at home? Because especially I was a teacher, but I don't think you have to. But if it's your personality, you can. So it's like, it's flexible. Chris was a coach, and we would go in the middle of the day and have a picnic lunch with him because we wouldn't see him that night if, he had a game or whatever. So just, yeah, you're in control of your schedule. And we're going to talk about what a different schedules could look like. So does anyone want to?
I just want to echo what you said about a schedule, because so many things will try to invade your homeschool day that it is good to start with, this is our must-dos for the day. We must get through these subject areas, or we must complete these assignments, and guard that, And I would also say just, I know we'll talk about scheduling, but it's important, too, to just say we also need downtime. If you do not give yourself downtime and guard it, and your kids that time to just play outdoors and be kids, you will run yourself ragged, and then you will end up taking time away from school to catch up on just rest, and you will get behind, and then it'll be this vicious cycle. So just guarding that special downtime is as important as we've got to get through this math lesson and this writing assignment, and also knowing that, putting words together in my mind, just somebody's got to fold the laundry, and dishes have to get cleaned up, and mom can't do everything, So that's one of the things I love about homeschooling too, is that my kids are learning a lot of real responsibility, because it takes all of us. Mom cannot teach all day and cook dinner and lunch and breakfast and do everything. It doesn't work like that. I become one really angry mom who's yelling about, I'm not your maid. I'm just saying, I've heard friends. But, it's just important to say these things are also in our schedule.
Yeah, I think that's what I was saying, too. Obviously, you're teaching more than just what our government has said is important, math and science and history. You're getting to teach them about the Bible. You're getting to teach them how to love each other. And I know that there are awesome public school teachers who can teach that also while they're teaching. But the other thing I was going to say is just recognizing the difference in personality. So I'm more of a type A kind of a personality, and I am like, let's just get this done. Like, get it done. You can have them free. But your kids aren't all like that. And I read this book, Romancing Your Child's Heart, and it just hit me. Like, God uses different things in your life. But I remember talking to one of my friends, and she read it, and she's like, it wasn't that great, because it's just God was talking to me through it. But just like Sandra was saying, just praying that God would give you wisdom for that child. He is going to tell you things that are specifically important to get done, but it might not look exactly like you want it to look all the time for every kid. They're all different, so.
I think, too, like you said, being flexible, things can change, but things can change, too, as your kids grow, if this is something you do for a long period of time. We were much less scheduled when they were young. Now I have a high schooler, and he's much more scheduled because he needs to be. So that can change as well over time as their ages change.
Very good point. Anything else about schedules? You want to share anything about your day, or Robin?
I did bring some sample schedules that are on the table in the back. If anybody wants to see that later.
While it's getting past to Robin, I remember when I had littler kids and we would have like room time was for the kids to play here so I could listen to this child read. And so we had different tricks that we would do, to spend time one-on-one. So we're happy to talk with y'all about that after, or if anybody wants to say anything about it.
So my kids have all graduated and some have graduated from college. So I'm like thinking back how we did some of this, but one of my close friends was just here visiting, and she and I sort of partnered together and did a lot of our homeschooling together, and that's really helpful to have friends that you can work with together. And one thing that we struggled with was we never had time for ourselves, like you were saying before, and you have to make that. And so we decided that we were going to train for some triathlons together. So we made the kids, for every year of their age, they had to run a lap around the track with us, or they had to swim a lap at the pool with us, or ride that many, miles with us on the bike. And then the kids ended up doing kids triathlons, and it was great. It was like some of the most special memories. Of course, we focused very heavily on academics as well, but that's just something that we did like 2 or 3 days a week. We were always working out together, and it was just a really beautiful time. And the kids even, you start to forget the fact that they had to run all those laps and everything, but they have really special memories from that time too.
I think it's neat that we can talk about, all the aspects of working out, and also it's not just all about curriculum, but we do want to focus on that. So what would y'all say, what is curriculum? How do I even know what to do? What are some of the things that y'all have done for curriculum?
I've done all different kinds of things. It's like you can pick up like the catalog, and anyway. My oldest is 24, my youngest is 11, so I've done all different kinds of things through the years. So my best memories when my kids were younger is like doing the fun things like the unit studies or the hands-on activities, the reading books, so doing like 5 in a row, before 5 in a row. We did Weaver, or like there's so many different. The unit studies were the things I really enjoyed when they were younger. When they get older, I always felt like it was a little bit harder maybe to do those, because like as Erin was saying, like you have to get more structured to get those credits or to do things. So I was very thankful that when I could, I did those fun things. And I think those are the things my kids remember the most too, or the fun hands-on activities.
So whenever we started homeschooling, my husband and I are both teachers, and I taught in the public school, and so my vision of homeschool was a classroom scenario where I was the teacher and my children were my students. They were really little, and so that didn't go over as well as I wanted it to. But I'm just saying, as you learn about your children's strengths and weaknesses, you end up finding new things. My oldest child was super bright, and she picked up on things. Like I could just mention it. She remembered it. She was all about it. And I thought, I've got this homeschool thing down. I just think I'm the world's best homeschool teacher, And then my second daughter came along, and there was a lot of weeping, and there was a stomach ache every time I said it was time to read. We were like enemies, frenemies. I just thought, what is happening? And it turned out that she has dyslexia. Okay, and so there was no amount of me yelling at her, or I became that person where I thought, if my child had me as a teacher in public school, I think I'd be up there really upset and concerned. So you live and you learn and you do a lot of research. But I will say I am amazed at all of the different curriculum choices that there are available now. I mean, even just since I've started homeschooling, my oldest is a freshman in high school, and just in these number of years, the wealth of information that's free on the internet, or sources that you can just download from the internet or pick up in hard copy are amazing. But I've had to do a lot of research. I have really had to become an expert in my kids' strengths and my kids' weaknesses. But yes, when they were younger, I can remember Emily saying, she asked a question one day, what's the largest city in the world? And I thought, that's let's look it up, And then that turned into a whole unit on China where we mapped it out with painter's tape on the floor, and we got Panda Express, and we would eat Chinese food, and we would build the wall with our blocks, and we would learn about the endangered white dolphins, and it would just came off of a question that somebody had, and it turned into a whole thing, and we loved that flexibility about homeschooling. I will say, though, that curriculum is a tool. It's not your master. And so even though we have bought curriculum that we really enjoy, it is not I'm not a slave to it. If I get behind in it, it's okay. We readjust our schedules. I sometimes have to do things to fill gaps. I have yet to honestly, truly find the perfect curriculum, and I think that you'll find that out too as you start to look. You'll just have to see what works best for me and how do I fill in the parts that I don't like.
I remember having a friend, and we were discussing, we want our kids to be learners. That's what I wanted for my kids. I don't know if I succeeded in that, but that's still what I wanted. And so just even saying that, like, she has a question. So how do we find the answer? And then going off of that, and like, we could just do this, but sometimes curriculums are a help for you. So you don't have to be a slave, but I'm like, why am I going to reinvent the wheel if I didn't even if you don't have those kids that are so curious? So curriculums are good to be a help, and a guide. And so Erin and Abby have put together a list, a huge resource that we're going to email out, and it has some, because like when she was saying that, it's like, how do I even start? I don't know what's best. But so this will help you going to the homeschool book fairs, talking to other people. I don't feel like I'm stealing from Sandra. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to try that. And like, it didn't work, or I loved it. And same with me. Like, we want to share, not because it's perfect and it might not work, but just to me, surrounding yourself, you being a learner and teaching your kids to be a learner, I think is huge in curriculums. Were you going to say something, Abby?
I was actually going to quote you. One time, Erin told me that any curriculum is good curriculum if you use it, and I know I'm misquoting, but as long as you are using it and it's one that you do, it's really hard to find a bad one. But one thing that I was concerned with when I started looking for curriculums was, is it right? Is it going to cover all the bases? So just from my own personal experience, in Texas, I went to the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills list that the TEA puts out, and it's the thing that everybody has to align with that teaches in public school. So I went through our curriculum scope and sequence, and I looked at, well, is it covering this? Is it not covering this? And basically everyone was, but that was one way that I did it. Another really great website is Kathy Duffy. It's a curriculum review website, and she has recommendations. She explains it really well. That's been helpful to me.
I was just going to say, it can be overwhelming, the amount of curriculum that's out there, so don't be overwhelmed. I know a lot of us brought curriculum. If you want to look at it today, we by far don't have everything available. But the quote that you're saying was actually something somebody said to me, and it was, the best curriculum is the one you'll use. And I would say that I have a little caveat to that now, that as Christians, I want something with a Christian worldview. So not everything has that. So for me, the best curriculum that for me is one that has a Christian worldview that I'll use. Some curriculums require a lot of planning on mom's part, a lot of work to get it ready to use with your child, and that's not really my style. So I'm more of a curriculum that's easy to open up and go, but it runs the gamut from things that are completely planned out for you or things that aren't, depending on what you want.
And one thing I remember, because when I was going to start homeschooling, it's like, where do I start? It was like this huge mountain I was staring at, and I didn't know the lingo or, people throw out like Alpha Omega or Abeka, or I didn't know any of it. And so I just was like, I just started doing research, looking at, just chipping away at it, just doing that. And then I took my husband, we went to a winter conference, which was like a teeny tiny book fair compared to like the big ones you go over the summer. And I was like, okay, I just was trying to get him involved. I said, how about you pick out the math? Okay, can you, it's like, because he always wants me to give him like the thing. He didn't, not like help me. He wants me to give him things. So I was like, can you do the math? And he's like, yes. And so we walked around this teeny tiny conference, and after a few minutes, he looked at me, and I could see this glazed look, and he's like, I am so overwhelmed. And it's like, this pressure just came off of me because I was like, okay, now I know he understands like what I feel like I'm doing. And so it's like, for anybody starting out, it's like, we've all been there. Like, it is a mountain, and it's hard to know the lingo, but just start walking the path and start asking questions or trying, things. It's like, it's kind of overwhelming. But once you start doing it, before you know it, it's like, I've been homeschooling 20 years, here I am. But it doesn't have to, there's so much support out there. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It does feel that way.
I had a friend that was just like, whatever is given to me and free, I'm going to use it. You could go that approach, or you could go, I've used it for other kids, I would, or you could custom and put this together. It's just like Aaron was saying, what's your personality? What's God equipping you? What's he telling you to do? There are other things like Cassie in our church that homeschools. She uses a Becca, and it's like the DVDs, but she returns them at the end of the year. And literally, her kids just are like in a classroom environment, and the teacher's teaching. And so I think it's like all the subjects. And it's a Christian worldview. And so that's what works for her, or you can even have classes like we were talking about teaching textbooks. It's computer-based, and they teach every day. And so there's lots of different options. And like we keep saying, just God will guide you. We get to seek him in it. And so we're talking about different ways to be involved or have help, like co-ops and One Day Academy and things. So do y'all want to talk about like how you would go about starting a co-op, or what a co-op looks like, or anything like that?
I'm a part of a co-op that this lady you helped create over here. It's been around for like many years now, and all it is like, a bunch of moms is working together, and we get together and meet up at the church. It's called Shining Stars, and we just have a few families that meet, and we all take turns teaching. We do all the work, but there's so many. And I have the handout back there.
How do you decide like how many people are in it and who can go in? Like, did you develop that process over time?
Well, I learned from someone who set up the co-op, and
but it's changed over time,
So basically, so first to do the co-op, like you kind of need to you want to find some people that are like-minded with you. Like, what are y'all's goals? You want to have like the same goals. Like, okay, this is what we want our co-op. Is it a field trip co-op? Is it this or that? Do we need a place to meet that has classrooms? And then maybe you decide like, okay, this is the place where we can meet that has classrooms. We're limited on size by the amount of room we have to meet. And we're limited, or like we charge this much money because the church charges this much money, or different things like that. And that's how you maybe determine your fees, and you determine where you meet based on your space. And like if it's a field trip co-op, well then maybe y'all just meet in a mom's home and make plans, or sign up, just the moms meet, and then y'all go plan field trips. And I've been a part of those before. Or
wasn't that like Junior Explorers? I think we
Junior
had
Explorers.
People signed up, and there was 12 moms, and so like say we did 6 field trips, one a month for 6 months. 2 moms planned it, and you said, well, I want to go to Krispy Kreme and we can see the behind, or so we would just do a field trip, and that was fun. The kids love that because
so there's all
it's
different
all
kinds.
fun, no work.
So it's mainly it's like somehow getting out, like either posting on there's like Hayes homeschoolers, or Hayes Aries homeschoolers. There's different things that you can post out and say, hey, I'm interested in doing field trips, or I'm interested in Minecraft co-op, or I don't know. There's so many different things that you could do, world history, or just general academics, and find people, see who responds, who is like-minded with you, and you'll sit down and brainstorm. How would you want it to work? How would you do it? Where would you meet? And then start just going from there. That's how Shining Stars started 15, 16 years ago. And
there's also ones like Classical Conversations. Some people say that that's like a co-op, but it's actually you pay to go there, and you're still involved. So you get to go to the classes with your kids, and Jeannie can talk to y'all more about that if you're interested. But there's tutors, and so for when I did CC, all my kids went to a different tutor, but I was one of the tutors, so even though I paid, I got paid for being a tutor, so it worked out for me. There's foundations, essentials, and then the challenges, I believe. So it goes through high school. And those are more, you can find those on the internet. where like some of the co-ops in the area, they're not really advertised necessarily. It's more word of mouth. Like Aaron was saying, there was one in Lockhart, some moms got together. And so, but anybody could start it. And yeah, just what is God showing y'all to do for that co-op that year, kind of. And we ended up making a board for ours because that just worked out better because, yeah, it just did. But, and also I was going to say about getting the word out. Back then it was like Yahoo groups, but now I know it's Facebook. So I was going to ask maybe Sandra to talk about that and whatever else. Because do you know about the Facebook group for homeschoolers or anybody? No?
In Wimberley, which is where I live, there's a Christian homeschoolers of Wimberley. And I believe there's a Facebook group for that, yes. But I was just going to say, my experience with that group in particular, because we are a part of Shining Stars now as well. And in that Shining Stars culture, we all agree we're going to do the same science we're going to do at home so that we're prepared when we come to class. But the Christian homeschoolers of Wimberley group was a little bit more fluid. I remember we would just meet at the library and everybody, for book club, but we didn't read the same book. Everybody came with their book every month, and they said, this is the book that I read, and they had some kind of project or paper or something age-appropriate that they had done to show what their book was about and what they learned from it, and it was just a time of sharing. And I know that isn't very structured, but it gave the kids a deadline to say, I've got to have my book and project completed because I want to share about this amazing book at co-op. And then other kids would learn, and they would say, oh, that sounds like something I would like. You really convinced me I need to read that, or I need to study about this. And we just spurred one another on that way. It wasn't as, we didn't have necessarily a plan, where every single day the co-op kind of meant you needed to do this at home. And then the other thing about that group, which has pros and cons, but we would just say for a season, for the next 5 weeks, we're going to have a writing club. And it was just for the next 5 weeks. And we met one time a week, and we worked through different conventions of writing. Or we would have a parent who was really into robotics, and so then he would maybe say, hey, if you just want to come by my shop on this day and this day, then I'm going to show you this robotics thing that I have built and how I made it. And, it was just cool to use people's gifts that way.
I love that. There's just so much that God could call us to. Shining Stars is more like, okay, we're going to do this science curriculum. This is kind of the plan for the year. So some people like it for that accountability, but it's like, we want to have Nature Day. So once a month, we're going to have Nature Day. So your co-op can kind of look however. It reminds me of Science Club that we had with Misty Ramirez way back. She would do once a month, we're going to have Science Club. So God could be calling you to do anything. And just, we wanted our kids to be serving, and that we made that important too. So it's just neat to do it with friends and just have that community. But I was going to ask Robin if she would talk a little bit about Veritas, because it's actually like university model, and I thought it was more homeschooling, but I think it's more private school now, maybe. Is that right?
Jennifer might be a better person to talk about this, and she'll be sitting over
Jennifer
at the table.
Pennington teaches at Veritas, so.
Yeah, it's a university model program. So with the younger kids, they have homeschool 3 days a week, and then they go to a classroom 2 days a week. And so you follow their curriculum, and it's kind of a nice hybrid. We did that for, we really never did that full time. At the time, they were just getting it started, so we just got the benefit of kind of fitting in a few classes here and there. I just kind of like controlling my own schedule a little bit more, and they were kind of rigid about how they did things. So, but if that's what you like and that's what you need, it's a great program. It can be a little expensive. There are other university model type programs available now. I was talking with some other friends, and I was surprised at how many more are available and out there now. So that's, I don't have all the answers to that, but there's some great classes like that. And one thing I was going to say is this is for older kids, maybe 12 years old and up. We were real involved with speech and debate. And I think the thing that I learned over the years from homeschooling is that I got real stuck on, we have to have science, and we have to have math, and we have to have economics, as they were growing up. And then I felt all frustrated if we weren't fitting everything in exactly like we were supposed to. But what I loved about getting involved with speech and debate is that it was a combination of all of it put together. And so it was a competitive speech and debate national club that all these homeschool families from around the United States was involved in. And each year there was a different theme for the Lincoln Douglas debate or team policy debate, and the speeches were sometimes a little bit different each year. And so kids learned so much because with extemporaneous speaking, you had to really learn a lot about economics and politics and team policy. You had to learn a lot about government and how it functions, and it depended on the resolution of the year. But there was so much to that, and so it was a really nice synthesis of everything. And kids had such a great community because we would go to local tournaments, and sometimes we'd go to national tournaments, and kids knew each other and loved working together, and they became so competent at speaking. It was absolutely amazing. So that was what we loved.
Yeah. Are there any other kind of clubs, it could be academic or not academic, that y'all want to mention?
On the PDF that we are offering to send out, there are a couple of different musical groups and clubs, and one of the moms that contacted me to put her information on there is a piano teacher, also promoted an orchestra, and I believe it's in San Marcos. But that's another really fun thing to get involved in. There's a Christian choral group in Austin. There's a lot of different things you can do with music, but that was one that I told her I'd mention.
Robin, what did Elliot do and Eric? What group was that? The symphony?
Eric and Elliot and Samuel were all involved with Starlight Symphony.
Starlight, that's
so
what
it's like a community symphony. And they had taken, Eric was already an accomplished musician, but the kids were, of course, learning piano and violin. And so they were able to participate in that. So Samuel did percussion with Eric, and Elliot played in the strings, and we got involved with all kinds of different things, sort of individually with music. We love music, so the kids that was part of their curriculum, and I had to sit down through many practice sessions because it's not fair to just sit your kid down and say, you have to practice, and then you go do your own thing, because it's just difficult for children to do that effectively. So, but it paid off, and I'm really happy that we did that, and it was a great experience.
I would love for my kids to be musical. We tried piano years and years, and I can't tell you how hard it was to get them. I'm like, why can't you practice? So it's not for everybody, and I'm not going to feel like a failure because they didn't do piano. I wanted them to do piano, but I wasn't willing to do piano either, so.
I was just going to say the documents that we can email to you about the resources that they're talking about, and a bunch of others. Even if you're not homeschooling or aren't sure if you're going to, there's one of the documents is just fun, free, and cheap things to do during the summer, and we won't spam you if you give us your email address. We'll just send you the documents, and that'll be it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, One Day Academy is nice because it offers some of these things that puts your children in with other kids, and then there's specialties for the teachers are specialties. So like we did theater many years in co-op, and actually Sandra's, anyways, but we didn't have Sandra, but we just tried to do theater, and we did lots of plays, and my kids loved it. But then when we realized that One Day Academy had theater, I was like, it's worth the $50 a month or whatever it is. So it's nice that they offer a lot of teachers that are more specialized in their field than necessarily at co-ops. You know, maybe you don't have a chemistry teacher that is awesome, you know, so you want your kid to have a chemistry teacher that's awesome, so you're willing to pay. But they have music also. I don't know if they have a choir, but they used to, but I'm not sure if they are next year. Are they? They are. And Kyle or Dripping? Oh, okay, Wednesday, South Austin campus, Bannock Barn. So One Day Academy is awesome because it's 1 day a week, so you're still getting to disciple and be with your kids a lot, but you have a specialized teacher. And it's nice if you want the curriculum that you don't have to be in charge of, and it's already all laid out for you.
I
So
was going to say, I didn't mean to interrupt. I wanted to say one thing. It is not essential to be a part of a group. You do not have to be. Your group can be your friends. Your group can be your church. One of the best pieces of advice that was given to me before I started homeschooling was not to do much more than homeschooling in the first year. And if that means being a part of a group, that's great. But I did not take that advice, and I should have, and it was a little overwhelming, and I ended up not being very good at a lot of things instead of being good at that one thing. And so that's just my thing I wanted to share with the groups, because it's okay if what works for y'all and your home and your kids is not to have to be somewhere.
yeah, or just there's so many things you could do. I mean, we know this as parents anyways. So just really asking God, what is it you want me to do, and not feeling like you're a failure if you're not doing all the best things, because really you're not a failure if you're following God, right, Tanya? Tanya
That's the
just
beauty
said,
of homeschooling, right? Because all of our kids are different, and all of us are different. We have different personalities, and so we do what works, right?
Tanya just said that the best piece of advice she got was your homeschool is not necessarily going to look like someone else's homeschool, because God made you the way he made you for your purpose and task. I'm saying this for the recording purposes. Okay.
One more cool club is, and I don't know if it was even on the paper. I'm sorry if I didn't send it to you. But Texas State has a string project.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've done different kinds of music lessons over the years, and some of them can be quite expensive. We've done piano for many years, but Texas State does an orchestra for children. And in the past, one of my daughters was involved with it, and we had to always go to campus. She had a beginning orchestra class. She is learning to play the violin. And the Texas State music students who are learning to be music teachers lead that. So they're getting practice on what it's like to have a class of students with, university supervision. But you can learn viola, you can learn bass, you can learn cello, you can learn, but there's so many different things. Since the pandemic has hit, I've wondered how they were going to keep doing that, but it's all online for us now. And so Allison, we don't have to bring her to Texas State every single week, which is nice, but she does a Zoom conference, and it works. I don't know how it works, but those teachers are so good at, Allison's got her violin in her bedroom, and she's got her screen open, and all the other kids are on there, and the teacher is so on top of it, and they're playing pieces together, and he can even tune them, and it's so amazing to me. And with that also comes a private lesson. She has a student assigned to her at Texas State who communicates with her during the week. He sends her little things to work on and videos to listen to, and she has a private lesson with him 30 minutes every week, and it's really affordable.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Dean.
Along with that, I was thinking back to some of the things that we got our kids involved in. And Texas State also offered, I'm not sure if they still offer it, but there's a hill country choir that our kids did when they were little. And so if piano, violin, clarinet, if all those are not your thing, hill country choir was great because it was run by Dr. Lynn Brinkmeyer, who is at Texas State. She is amazing. She was able to get Elliot to stand on a choir riser and be still for 45 minutes.
At what age?
Which is like a miracle. But that was a really cool way to get some involvement in a musical setting.
Yeah.
That's through Texas State also.
Yeah. And just speaking of, as they're getting older, ACC offers dual credit. What does that look like? And do you have to keep grades? Is it different for different states? Maybe Aaron can talk a little bit about grades, and we can just, whoever wants to have some input about ACC and dual credit, et cetera.
So as far as different states go, I've homeschooled in 3 states. So so I can't speak to all 50. And God was really had his hand on our family, because the states that we've homeschooled are very homeschool friendly. So California, Idaho, and Texas. A lot of people think California is not homeschool friendly, but they actually are very homeschool friendly compared to a lot of other states. They don't have a lot of requirements. Basically, you have to keep attendance. And that's pretty much it. You can make your own decisions. You're considered a private school in California. And you do have to file an affidavit to be a private school once a year, usually in October, when all the other private schools file. It's the best time to file. And Idaho is very similar to Texas in that there's not really many restrictions, you know. So that's
What are the requirements in Texas? Do you have to keep grades? How do you do a transcript?
So I know Texas says that you have to have not like a sham homeschool, has to be an authentic school. So you have to actually be teaching them something, basically not just letting them not have an education. And beyond that, in my research, I haven't come across a whole lot. If your children want to go to higher education, you should probably be keeping grades, at least in high school. I know that's what I did for our oldest, who I graduated in 2018. And
she went to Hayes for a little, so how did that work out?
She went to public school for
grades?
a semester when we moved here. So it was fall of 2016. She was a junior. And yeah, 2016.
Did you have to give them all her grades?
So having homeschooled in different states, I actually had a transcript for her from what was considered a public homeschool charter in California. It's a kind of a different system there. They have public homeschool charters where you're homeschooling your own child, but you get state-funded money to do it. And then some of the campuses offer classes, some of them don't. It can look really different. So we've been independent homeschoolers in Idaho and in California. We've been charter homeschoolers in California. I've been with 3 different charters in California for various different reasons. So we've had a lot of different experiences, different co-ops in California. We're part of Shining Stars now too. And so it can look, your homeschool can look really different depending on where you live. And the groups even look different, right? The homeschool groups that you find here look different than the ones you find in Idaho or the ones you find in California. They just can run the gamut, and I assume it's that way in all the states. So,
Tammy, do you want to share about your grading and transcripts?
So my oldest 2 have graduated from A&M, and my oldest is a PhD student right now at A&M. And whenever they were in high school, we were able to dual enroll at ACC, and that was probably one of the best things we did. It worked out really well for them. I was really nervous about it, but it worked out really well. And they were able to get credits so that by the time they transferred in, or whenever they entered college at A&M, they had probably at least almost a whole year of credits. And so they just used that to lighten the load. And they both graduated in 4 years, but it was my oldest one because usually they were both engineers, so they had to have 17-hour semesters, but my oldest one used that to double major. So he could still do 17 hours, but he was able to add another major. But my other son he preferred to only take 13-hour semesters because he had all that credit going in. And it was really nice being able to be like, okay, this year in high school, this is our English. So I counted it for homeschool English, but he was getting college credit for it. And anyway, we had a really good experience with that. And for transcripts, and even if anybody's interested and want to sign up, I can send you a copy that I found in a homeschool magazine. It was just awesome. And instead of going by year, this is what I took from 2015 to 2016 or whatever by year, it was by subject. So it'd be English credits, and we listed all of them. I looked online, and I said, for Texas, graduating from high school, how many credits would they need to get? Or I would even look at A&M, what credits do they need? And I would make the transcript kind of tailored to that, and so then that way, from homeschooling, I would pull some stuff in. My son started doing Latin. He did 4 years of Latin, but he started in 7th grade. So I counted all 4 years of Latin. It didn't have to be, since I set up his transcript not by year, but by subject, it wasn't this big red flag of wait, you're counting some really old classes or whatever. But I did that, and I really think that just from our experience, Am I doing something? Oh, no. Was that anyway, from my experience, that a lot of it, the SAT testing is what got them in, and so I made sure I included that in whenever they were in high school. I made sure I did like PSAT testing books and other books to prepare them for that, and they took the test several times. But I think that was really important to kind of equalize. I don't know.
So for us, you of course you get to know your child as you're homeschooling, and maybe hopefully by the time they're in high school you sort of have an idea about if they're gifted towards math, or if they're more musically inclined or something, maybe what area of study they might want to pursue in college. So I started pursuing classes in high school that I felt, for example, Samuel seemed to be very open towards more medical things because he had all these medical things that had happened to him. And so he was compassionate in that way, and we enrolled him in some classes that way. So he learned that he did like that, and so he ended up going into nursing school in college. And it doesn't always work out that way, but it's nice when it does. And so as we were looking at curriculum at different schools that we thought he might like, we made sure that the classes that we took at ACC would be the ones that could transfer over and would complement that curriculum, or the classes that were required to graduate in that particular degree. Thank you very much. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can use those credits, and it did lighten their load a lot. And I had to keep track of the grades pretty carefully. Two of my kids went into and got military scholarships, and one had really pursued the national academies. So they were very particular about knowing exactly what curriculum they had and what grades there were, and so we kept close track of that. Don't wait until they're seniors and go, okay, what did they do then? We started back when they were pretty young, and we kept track of all that stuff and did a transcript every year, and then it worked out well.
I do have an experience withdrawing somebody from public school too, because my daughter only went to Hayes for a semester, and then she decided she wanted to come back home. She had a good experience. Wasn't that she necessarily disliked it, but she preferred having more time because she had more time at home and kind of doing other things she wanted to do. So anyway, if anybody has any questions about withdrawing your child from public school, I might be able to answer some of those.
I've had friends that wanted to put their kids in high school like their sophomore year, and they did make them take tests for all of the credits since we're not accredited as a private homeschooler. So if they took algebra, they needed to take a test to prove that they knew algebra enough. So that's something to consider. So that's why a lot of times people will want to put their child in their freshman year, so they just have their whole high school. But I don't know, I guess she didn't have to take tests.
We also have an experience with going from homeschooling to public schooling, and I'll say that it really just depends on the campus. Erin can tell you what Hayes is like. I can tell you what 2 different experiences in Wimberley have been like, because they were one at an elementary campus and one at a junior high campus. We did enroll my second oldest daughter in public school, and then also withdrew her, and we can talk about that experience too and why we made that decision. But it was different even in the same school district, depending on the campuses that they were at.
Interesting.
Also, as far as like keeping grades, I never kept grades for my kids really until once they got to high school, and that's when I was really trying to keep grades for them. And then also, like as far as applying to colleges, like Robin was saying, like you want to look and see what they require, because like one college like A&M, I gave them my abbreviated transcript, and really I think they focused on SAT scores, and it was a breeze. But then like applying to UT, I had to list every single thing. Like when I say English 1, what does that mean? I had to list all the books we read, and I had to list what curriculum we did for each thing. So it's probably good, like once you get to high school, keep track of that, because then it'll make it easier if you're doing a transcript every year, then you're prepared. But it's also like if you start getting ideas of where your child wants to go, then you can kind of start shaping their high school for that.
Yeah, some people were wanting to keep all of everything just to prove it. In elementary, you have these boxes and boxes in your attic of all their handwriting, but I don't really think that's necessary. Yes, Jessica? And
Well,
people do that.
And I didn't even with my oldest, I was like, well, I kind of would keep some grades on certain things, but I could really tell he was really understanding it. And so, I gave him a 4.0, and of course now looking back, I was like, oh yeah, that was really kind of a no-brainer. I don't know why I struggled with that because he's really super smart. But
Getting his
but
doctorate.
even now, I have some children that go to private school, and I can see they struggle with this class. How did the teachers handle it? Well, so many times they would get a homework assignment that would somehow things I could see maybe they didn't really understand things, but the way that they were doing grading, or they did count this as a test, or they count this as a homework, it was they would be a B or an A student in that class, when I was like, okay, I don't feel bad about giving my kid now in homeschool second chances to bring their grade up, or second chances, or maybe structuring it where it's more open book now and then. And I really think it's so subjective. I would just wouldn't struggle with that so much. I think there's just lots, seeing now how other maybe schools are grading, made me feel a little more free as a teacher, going more on how they're understanding it. Maybe not, instead of just oh, Mal, you flubbed this test and you're going to fail now, or whatever,
It's so hard to know, because you want them to grasp it and you want it to reflect, but also, are they willing to work hard and try to get it again? So to me, grading is so much No, that's what she's saying. It's more off at SAT or ACT. There's not.
I think so. Don't you think so? That's the only way
my
to equalize it.
They didn't have any trouble going to Texas. They all have gone to Texas State. Well, Kale is A&M also, but he's doing the Chevron program, so he's ACC A&M. So, yeah. Well, it's crazy because you could go to a school and have a 3.8 off a 4-point scale, but you're not in the top 10%. So you have a hard time getting an A in A&M, but it's... Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly.
So it depends on the school that your child is looking at. So if they want to go to a certain school, it was important for us to keep track of GPA, because some schools only went by SATs for certain scholarship levels. Some schools really focused on your GPA in addition to your SAT and your extracurricular. So every kind of school has different criteria. And so for us, it was important to keep track of the GPA once they were in the high school age range, because we did it by subject too. Some of our kids took Latin young, or they took government when they were in 8th grade or something, but that was a 9th grade class. So we kept track of it that way. And also with an ACC, in dual credit for high schools, if you were in a public school, they usually, not just one semester, but they take speech, for example. If it was a semester class in college, they did it all year. So if they take it at ACC at the college level, it's condensed into one semester. So there's a little bit of grace there. If they happen to have a high C, I had no problem giving them a B for that class, because had they taken it at the public school, they would have done it all year long, and it would have been easier. So there's things like that.
Obviously, my oldest is not in the age range of needing transcripts, but I did want to speak to one thing that we try to do. I always want my kids to be ready to go into a public school setting if they need to. And so part of that is learning the right way to take tests and the right way to turn in homework and structure papers. And I'm in no way perfect at that, but I did use grades for that purpose because it was a way for me to point out to my child that you're not learning how to take this test the right way if I'm always giving you, if you're expecting me to give you a second chance on it. So I need you to work towards doing it right the first time, just so you can have that skill.
And I just wanted to say, I think it depends on the track your kid's on too for, college education. My oldest graduated with dual credits, about a year's worth of dual credit at ACC. And then she took a year to do a stenography program. That's what she thought she wanted to do, decided it wasn't for her, and went back to ACC. And now she's applied for and been accepted at Baylor, TCU, and Texas State. She's deciding where to go, but she never took the SAT because that wasn't what she was going to do. She was going to do stenography, which then didn't happen. But she still now has been accepted at those schools, even though she never took the SAT.
Yeah, transfer. What
She's
about
a transfer
aptitude
student, yeah.
tests? Anybody familiar with that? Like aptitude tests? I think ODA offered. Well, isn't that? Iowa Basics. I never had my kids take any of those, so I can't talk to them.
So my kids have taken some in California when we were with the charter school. Certain charters require that as part of enrollment there. And I knew that, signing up with the charter school. And they did fine, honestly. Like, I think homeschool kids are pretty well educated, to be honest. And so we didn't have any issues.
I remember we did take home, I think it was the STAR test, or what's the other one? We had Chris, you were able to get it so we had a testing day so I could test them. I think we did it 2 years, but they just liked it because I gave them chocolate because it helps them think better. So that's what they remember about that testing. But yeah, I think it's kind of nice to know how your kids would do on a test like that. And also I did, over the years, God's like, okay, you need to teach them more how to take a test or whatever, so. Okay, so anything else y'all want to talk about? Abby is going to talk about one more thing.
It's not an aptitude test, and it's not an achievement test. I know I grew up going to a private school, and we take the Stanford Achievement Test every year. One thing that I have used for Bella, at least, she's my oldest, is Khan Academy, because if I want to find out if I have allowed there to be gaps, especially in math, then we'll go through and she'll take the tests and figure out, okay, what have you missed, if anything, by using this certain curriculum?
Okay, we did want to hear from a couple of dads' perspectives. So I think Chris is going to come up and share, and then Eric Dean. So we gave them freedom to say whatever they wanted. Yeah, so thank you, girls. So Chris will talk first, and then Eric.
Oh, no, I'm good. Do y'all have any questions for me as a dad going into this? One of the things that I loved being involved in that's for you, because we don't want to share when we could.
All right.
So, I loved being involved in my kids' education. My primary role was principal. So when I came home from a long day, of my own work, but she also had a long day of teaching all day, and so someone needed to be the disciplinarian in those things, and so I got to fill into that role of principal at different times. But I really enjoyed being involved with my kids when they were younger. Unit studies, someone mentioned unit studies, just getting involved in China. And I remember one night we were doing something about the Civil War, and we ate hardtack, which was disgusting, but our dinner was like hardtack and like some weird soup, and we sat in the living room with a little candle fire. And
did your hardtack have worms in it? Because in the Civil War, it had worms.
I mean, we're pretty authentic, but not
pretty
that authentic.
Okay.
Yes, so, but I loved being involved in that. I loved reading books. We would read books together as a family, and missionary books of those areas that we were studying, mapping the world. And so I loved being involved in that part of my kids' education with them. And then, of course, for me, being a coach, being involved in their sports lives and discipling them in those areas as well. So, what about you, Eric?
Let's see. I was the Excel record-keeping geek of the family, so our transcript, I thought, was a thing of beauty. Because we were calculating GPAs per year, and it was awesome. But, yeah, I really enjoyed being a homeschool dad, and I feel like Robin and I, when we were first considering homeschooling, we went to a homeschool conference. We were living in Richmond, Virginia at the time, and Chase was maybe 4. And so we kind of made the decision together, which I thought was important all the way through because we were both involved, which I thought was important. And we just saw, my summary of why we started homeschooling was not that we felt like there was anything wrong with the public schools, because Robin and I both came from a public school system, but we saw such advantage and we saw such good results, if you want to think about it that way, in all these homeschooling families. So to be part of that was really neat. One kind of unique thing that came out of our homeschooling experience was, since I had 3 sons, there was a group of dads that got together and did something called Journey to Manhood, which is when your sons get to like 12, 13, 14. It was a monthly meeting over the whole school year. And while it wasn't a class in homeschool, it was something I learned about from a bunch of other homeschool dads. It was really meaningful to go through that with each of my sons. So that was a good experience too.
Yeah, and we also, as a group of dads, as our kids got older, we got more involved in their homeschooling curriculum. So we had a starting points class that we did one time as a bunch of dads where it was worldview. And so we as dads rotated teaching worldview to the co-op kids as well. And so going through all the way to we started reading, the worldview was the first semester, and then they started reading books like Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and all these other books from the world, and then what worldview do you see in these books, and teaching them how to read those curriculums. And so dads are super important to be on board with homeschooling, and especially as your kids get older, dads stepping into those roles to teach them, because you're going to get to classes that maybe you can't teach anymore, and that's where like an ODA or an ACC or these other things come into play for sure. But have the dads make sure they're on board for homeschooling to do those things. It's very important.
Yeah, one of my jobs in our homeschooling year, when our oldest was doing the worldview program, is I was getting up at 5 a.m. to read St. Augustine's City of God because I had to teach a section of it to our little co-op, and I'd never done that when I was in school, so I was learning stuff too, which was really neat.
Yeah, and I just don't be scared of it. I was a school teacher for 17 years, and there are problems in the public school, just like there's problems in your own home when you homeschool. But there's nothing better to me than discipling your kids instead of letting other people disciple them, and so it's worth the investment. Homeschooling is not cheap. I mean, you know this. The curriculums cost some money, but if you think of it as you're investing in your kids and investing in their future and investing in discipleship, it's just a way for your husband especially, or Tara does our bills, but just understanding that this investment is important in our kids' lives. And more than anything, we want our kids to follow Christ. We want them to have a worldview of what it means to follow Christ. And that's going to last through the successes and failures of them as they get older through school, discovering who God has made them to be. I know that I have a degree in exercise and sports science and mathematics, and neither one of those do I use for my current job. Unless I tutor your kids in something on the side. But but it was an amazing experience to see our kids growing in that, and some doing well, some not doing so well at different times. But hopefully we had a chance to teach them about Christ.
Yeah, I would sum it up that our sons, we have good communication with each of our sons, but it's very unique because each of them are different people and they communicate in different ways. and we don't agree on everything right now. I mean, as young adults, we don't agree on a whole variety of things. But even though our oldest son is now in the Navy in Japan, he'll FaceTime me every now and then. And he's not a great communicator. But when we talk, we feel like there's a real relationship. So I feel like at the end of the day, we have this relationship where we've gone through these school years and school experiences together, and we've come out of it knowing that they're adults, they have a path, but we have a relationship that I think is really valuable. And I think the homeschool experience has really kind of built that relationship.
Yeah, I think building your family unity has been so important. Our kids love one another. Our kids communicate with us, family. They love family, and I think that's an amazing part of it. And then the other thing I would tell you is find other people that are homeschooling to be your support and encouragement in the process. I mean, many of y'all have been just a godsend for our family and for Tara through the years of processing and walking through life with your kids. So finding other ladies that you can really go to and just say, I don't think I'm doing this right. And they're like, well, you're doing fine, or no, you're not doing this right. Here's what we did. Finding that is really, really important. Any questions you'll have for us? We're old dads with kids all graduated now.
My
so
back.
Yes. Awesome.
We have an awesome video to show y'all now that the Bickhams put together. Thank you, Bickhams.
Using this one?
I don't think so, but it has a mute. You probably know that because you're a music guy.
Getting to hang out with my sister. Math.
Spending time with family.
I like that homeschool, it's not the same every day. Sometimes you can be outside, sometimes you can be speaking a foreign language, and sometimes you can be spending more time on one subject. Your animals can be around, or you can just be doing whatsoever.
Having control of my schedule.
Hi, I'm Kale. Something I really enjoyed about being homeschooled was that we were able to go out into nature to have school. We could have field trips every day if we wanted to. We could travel around the country, all while still learning and not falling behind. So that was something I really liked about being homeschooled.
My favorite part about homeschooling is math, and my favorite part of it about math is there's numbers, and I get to work with my dad because he likes math too.
Hi, I'm Shelby. Okay, one thing that I really like about my homeschool experience is that I was able to be really involved in my youth group. So when me and my friends wanted to hang out, we could go in the middle of the day if we had our schoolwork done. We were able to pick what classes we took together. We also did dual credit at ACC, so then we could plan to do all of us in one huge class together.
Hi, I'm Tyler, and one thing I really enjoyed about homeschool was that I could still play sports, because I thought when I was homeschooled I wouldn't be able to play competitive sports in high school, but I still was able to. And I also enjoy the flexibility that homeschool gives you, where you can do things with your friends during the week and not have to be at school all the day.
My favorite part about homeschooling is probably getting to hang out with my cat Lucky here, my sister, and my mom.
Hi, I'm Kara Smith, and something I really liked about homeschooling was getting to spend time with my family and like being really close with them, and the opportunity for sports that I had within homeschooling and like those friendships that I got to make.
That I can take breaks whenever I need to, and that I don't have to wait for lunch or recess or whatever.
I like that I can work at my own pace and that I don't have to worry about homework because I can get it all done. And then I have time to do the things that I like to do, like play with my siblings, ride my bike, and play my guitar without having that weight on my back of worrying about doing homework.
Probably that I can go to co-op and have fun with my friends, and that since most
get my schoolwork done earlier than like most people do in the public school, because they end around 3:30 and then they have homework, but I can just do the homework that's assigned to me during the day and get done around 1-ish.
One thing that I would change about being homeschooled is you're kind of in a bubble in a way. You can have the same opinions, the same people you see all the time. So I think maybe being able to get out and have other opportunities. We have opportunities like lots of sports teams and stuff, but there was only 1 or 2 in my area, so you kind of are with the same people you go to school with. But
the only thing I could think to change is my teacher's too nice.
Nothing. I enjoy it a lot, and I just don't really think there's really anything needed to change.
Maybe every once in a while it'd be fun to do homeschool with a friend.
Nothing other than maybe I would get myself less school.
Something that I would have changed about my experience would probably be, I'm an elementary school major now in college, and I wish I had that experience in an elementary school so that I could be better prepared for being a teacher there. But that's the only thing I would change.
Something that I would want more of in my homeschool was diversity of opinion, because I think the best way to have the best opinions is to hear the most opinions as possible and form your own ideas. So I think that would be the best thing to add to homeschooling.
That I could go to co-op every day.
Why?
Because then I could see my friends, and co-op is more fun than just staying at home and doing school.
One thing I would change about homeschool is that a lot of times you have to teach yourself a lot of things, especially when you get to high school, because you only meet once a week with your teacher. You have to do a lot of reading and kind of explaining to yourself. But at the same time, it also kind of prepared you for college, because college is almost the exact same way, where you have to teach yourself a lot of the information.
Something that I would probably change about my homeschool experience is having different teachers teaching different subjects.
I wish that my grandparents could help me with math and homeschool. I really like homeschooling, so I won't change anything. It's fun and you can do a lot of activities. Nothing.
You wouldn't change anything?
Yeah.
Okay, so now Jennifer's going to be available to talk about Veritas, and Jeannie's going to be available to talk about classical conversations, and Lynette is going to be able to talk about One Day Academy, and then there's also tables for starting co-ops. Tammy and Abby's going to be, where are you? Are you going to be somewhere? Okay, and Sandra's willing to talk about dyslexia. I wish everybody was here to talk to you, because that's like not very many people are specialized in that or able to talk about it. And then I'll talk about ACC. Really, we can just talk to you about anything you want. But Abby, are you going to be at a certain place or no? Okay. Yeah, there's other people here that definitely could. Okay. Okay. Awesome. All right. Thanks for coming, guys.